Hey, what's going on YouTube? The Bearded Baron here, bringing you guys another Dead by Daylight tutorial. One of the biggest keys to improving your overall Survivor gameplay in Dead by Daylight is knowing the map structures and how to loop them. So today, I've compiled the top 5 most common map tiles, and I'll explain the correct way to loop them. Now, this video is for survivors, but I'll be working on a killer edition as well to showcase how to break these loops. Keep in mind, however, that the counterplay for these loops only matter when the survivor knows how to loop them properly. Even in red ranks, I've seen survivors that have no idea how to run various loops and are forced to drop pallets early. First, in order to understand how to loop these tiles, we need to determine what a tile is. A tile is an area that has an undetermined structure or no structure before the match begins. RNG determines what structure is generated. Sometimes this works extremely well for a survivor, and sometimes it does not. Once you understand how powerful certain tiles are connected to one another, you can easily loop a killer for multiple generators, or on the killer side, drop the chase before it's too late. This video also assumes that you're going against a non-loop breaking killer, such as the Huntress, Nurse, or Pyramid Head, as their metas require different techniques. Lastly, I've included drawings of each structure that I'll be talking about. Orange represents the pallets and blues are the windows. But without further ado, let's get into the video. The first structure I'd like to talk about is the LT tile. Aptly named because the walls form an L and a T, this structure is relatively safe when looped correctly. The idea behind the tile is to move in a clockwise motion. This forces the killer around the outside of the window, allowing you to easily loop until the entity takes one or both of the windows. If the killer does cut inwards instead of taking the outside path, you can still loop one of the walls to regain that clockwise motion. There are no pallets on this tile, however, so moving on to another tile is necessary, as even played perfectly, you will eventually get hit with Bloodlust. The next tile is known as the Seawall. This is named because of the small sea formation located on the tile. This structure has a medium safeness, especially with the dropped pallet. There is a long wall and a short wall on either side of that pallet. Playing the long wall is very safe as it eliminates mind gaming pretty well. But if the killer is trying to force you to play on the short side, loop them around the structure until you are on the long side of the wall. This can be done several times over and is really great for breaking Bloodlust. Sadly, once the pallet is broken here, this tile becomes useless and should be avoided if possible. This next tile has 2 different variations, and I'll talk about both of them. The first variation, as shown here, has a window and a pallet to loop around, but has 2 short walls on the right-hand side. The idea behind this tile is to loop through the window in a clockwise motion, through the pallet, and then back through the window. Again, if the killer cuts through the middle, you still have the window to play around and the pallet in the area to break Bloodlust. Additionally, with head-on, there are very good opportunities at these jungle gyms for additional stuns. Even when the pallet is broken, you can still loop this area, but without anything to break the Bloodlust, you will eventually get hit, regardless of how perfectly you play it. The second variation of this jungle gym is similar to the first, but with some noticeable differences. Firstly, the window has been moved to the short walls on the right-hand side, and the 2 short walls has now formed one long wall. This jungle gym is safer than the first, as you can just play the long wall by itself. Make sure, however, that when you are playing this long wall, that you take the angles wide, as any medium vault will get you hit guaranteed. The idea behind this tile is simple. It's to loop through the window, clockwise around the pallet, and back through the window. Again, even if the pallet is broken, this is still a viable looping point, but you will need something to break that Bloodlust. Last, but certainly not least, are the killer shacks. This is the only permanent structure that I'll talk about in this video, as well as the safest looping spot for a survivor. The tile consists of 1 window, 2 doorways, and 1 pallet. This pallet is often referred to as the God pallet, as it is normally the safest pallet in a match. The idea behind this tile is to loop in a counterclockwise motion through the window, to the pallet doorway, and back to the window. What makes this tile so safe, however, is the fact that on both sides of the doorways are very long walls that the killer will have to go around to catch up. Additionally, there are several mind game opportunities that can be played here to increase the amount of time needed before the pallet has to be dropped. Even after the pallet is broken, this tile is still relatively safe until the killer bloodlusts or mind games properly. Bonus fun fact: did you guys know that there's a cow on Leary's Memorial Institute? Well, now you do. Alright guys, that's my video. Did I miss a structure? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, make sure to hit that subscription button and click that notification bell so that way you guys know when I go live for you. I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the fog.